There's three positions. God's in time, that's process theology, open theism. God's outside of time, that's Thomistic classical theism. Then you have John Frame's position that God's Lord of time. I'm just going to go over the three positions, and I'll give you where I lean, but I don't know. I don't know, but obviously my theology points me towards Frame's position. You got to define what time is. A lot of people want to restrict time to creation. Why is time a part of creation? Why is it inherently a part of creation? I don't understand why it would have to be inherently a part of creation. What is time? You got to define time, and you got to define space. Infinity is usually dealt with space, and eternity is dealt with time, biblically speaking. He's an infinite God. We think spatial. We think spatially. Not that God is spatially, per se, because he's simple, but we think of spatial. When we think of eternal, we think of time. If you were restricting your terms to Scripture and hermeneutics, exegesis, every time the Bible uses those words, especially eternity, it's eternal past, eternal future. A day is like 1,000 days. 1,000 days is like a day. You don't ever get anywhere in Scriptures that speaks of eternity as timelessness. Never. I'm not saying that can't be accommodated language. I'm not saying that means that God is not timeless. I'm just saying Scriptures doesn't point to a timeless being exegetically. It speaks of eternity past, before the foundation of the world. And it leaves us kind of like, well, maybe we can't go beyond what that means. But biblically speaking, I think you can't make an exegetical case to a timeless God. Time is succession. There's no other way of defining time, but it's measurement of movement, motion. And if there's motion, there's a before and there's an after, a succession of a time. Therefore, we know there's time in creation. There's a beginning and there's an end. Does God know the present moment? All things happening simultaneously in an eternal state of self-existent, all present now. Well, that's the extreme form of divine simplicity. It leads to that view of timelessness. So most people who say God's outside of time, they got this Thomistic view of God's simplicity. Your mind shuts down when you get to a timeless God. And you can't honestly think of God as timeless. You can say he's timeless, but you can't put conception to a God that's timeless. I'm not saying he's not timeless. I'm just saying our minds can't compute a timeless God, before and after.